Welcome everybody to our first museum lecture, and just to let you know a little bit about this museum. So it's a Maynard Dixon and Native American art museum. This room will switch every 3 or 4 months and we'll have different shows. So this show right here is a very important show because it's Maynard Dixon's illustrations and Dennis Ziemienski's illustrations. It's a lifetime of 2 different artists. And what the museum is, for those who may not know, so it goes to our nonprofit, the entry fees when you join, and there's membership fees if you'd like to join too. That goes to our arts, Sublette Family Foundation, which is for the arts. So this will be for the event of our Tucson, and we'll have different events in here every 3 to 4 months, as well as other things like this. We want to provide services for the community, like this is a free thing for WAP, and we'd like to do more of those, and we will. And so let me just start and talk about Dennis Ziemienski. Now, most of you know in here I'm very well versed in Maynard Dixon. Obviously, I did a museum for Maynard Dixon. But when you think about these 2 artists, they're very similar. And I didn't really realize that until I started looking at the timelines. And the important thing when you look at artists is their history. And often, I write about history. I write books on history, on art. And when I've looked at Dennis and Maynard Dixon, I saw these correlations that I hadn't seen before. So let's just think about them. Let's think about the arc of these 2 men. So you have Maynard Dixon, and he's born right at the Gilded Age, right? So you have Mark Twain is writing the book, and Charles Dudley is writing the book on the Gilded Age in 1873. Dixon's born on January 24th of 1875. So he's starting at the Gilded Age, and at that time, when he starts, there is no lights. That really doesn't start till the early 1880s. There's no electricity. But when Dixon gets going in his career, which he's going to go to New York when he's 33 years old, at that point in time, he is in the golden age of illustration. It's really rocking and rolling. But that will change over time, and photography will come in, and that will change the way illustration goes. And he's going to live from this time, from the Gilded Age all the way to the nuclear age. And it's interesting to know, and I didn't even know this until today, that Maynard Dixon he died in the Boomer era. So the Boomer starts in 1946, the Boomer generation. And so he dies on November 13th of 1946. Dennis Ziemienski is born May the 6th of 1947, 6 months later. He takes over the new mantle of how you see the world of illustration. So now you have Dennis coming into the world, right? And when he ends up going to be an illustrator in the 80s and 90s, which was kind of the golden age, again, that came back for illustration. And these were paintings. But by the mid-90s, you have computers coming in, and it changes. And he's going to leave illustration, do fine art. And now we go to the full arc, and the full arc would be all the way to today. We have AI. So you go from illustration, computers, to AI. You start it from 1875 to right now, today. And so these men have other things that are common. They're both Californians, right? They're both born in California. Maynard Dixon's born in Fresno, and Dennis Ziemienski is born in San Francisco. And they both go to California art schools. Now Dixon he's only there for 3 months, but he's at the California School of Design, and he gets there in 1892. There's a man named Arthur Matthews, who is trained in Europe, and he's not an individual who really can relate to a Maynard Dixon type of person. Dixon's about nature. He's about the outdoors in the West and Native Americans, so he doesn't get Dixon, and Dixon definitely doesn't get Arthur Matthews. So he quits, Dixon does, in 1892, and immediately in 1893 he gets his first illustration. So, and that's for the Overland Monthly, and we actually have those posters on that side of the Overland Monthly, and that's in 1893. Now, can anybody tell me what's happening in the world? It's the world, but also America in 1893?
Civil War? World's Fair.
There is a World's Fair, and there's that's definitely there, and there's also a Great Depression. It's a worldwide depression. People don't realize this, but in that time frame, you had 575 banks go under. You have 15,000 businesses go under. You have 1/3 of the railroads go into receivership. And so Dixon comes into this time frame, but he's young, right? So in 1895, by the time 1895 comes on, he's doing the cover of Overland Monthly. And he doesn't see the Depression. He doesn't see any of those things because he's gifted and people want him. And when he does that 1895 cover of Overland Monthly, they talk and say in the magazine, the next Frederick Remington. And which is interesting because Dixon writes Frederick Remington in 1891, and he writes, Frederick Remington writes him back, and he says, and Dixon sends him his drawings. We have that drawing, actually, that Dixon was sent to Remington in this museum. And Remington said, oh yeah, you're better than I was at your age, draw, 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 always draw from nature. And he goes on to say, it's good life to be an illustrator. You may not get rich, but it's an honest living. And so Dixon takes this to heart. And this is, so this is happening in 1895. All that's in the back of Dixon's head because it's happened to him when he writes to Frederick Remington. He's only 16 years old. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, right? So that's 1895. By 1906, we have the Great Earthquake, and that's going to affect Dixon greatly too. Now, he's just doing illustration primarily at this time, but on April 18th, they have the Great Earthquake, 7.91 earthquake. You have 3,000 people killed. You have 80% of the entire town destroyed, and it's going to affect Dixon for the rest of his life, really. He probably has PTSD from this. And why that's important is because there's no work, right? There are some things that he did in 1906, but there's not a lot of illustrations, so he needs to find a new place, a new home, which is going to be in New York City. So 1907, he comes to Tucson, Arizona. What does he do? He does the illustrations for the new train depot in 1907. And he gets $300 for this, which he immediately puts into the Lincoln Trust Bank in New York, where he's headed. Unfortunately, there's the great pandemic, the great bank deposit of all America goes crashing down. It's because you have the Knickerbocker Trust, which tried to get all the stocks for one of the railroads. It blows up. It blows up the stock market. Stock market drops by 50%. Dixon loses his $300 in Lincoln Trust, which was a big deal for him. So again, Dixon comes to New York City in a recession, and it's a pretty significant recession. So they have 8% of the unemployment at that time. So, and the reason this will be interesting when we get to Ziemienski when he goes to New York City. So Dixon goes to New York City. He gets there about 1908, and he's going to be there till 1912. And he's the toast of the town as far as illustration. Collier's and Pearson, all these magazines, books, they all want him to illustrate. And he's being very successful. But he also sees changes in what's going on in the West, and he sees them at home. So in 1909, Frederick Remington dies of a ruptured appendix. Geronimo dies. The Wright brothers come to New York City, and Orville Wright takes his plane around the Statue of Liberty. And Dixon would have been very well aware of this. And at that time, he's thinking, okay, the West is changing. Maybe I need to get back to San Francisco and then get back to the West. And by 1912 comes February 14th, we have Valentine's Day, and we have Arizona becomes a state. And so a month later after that, Dixon goes. And he writes Charles Lummis, and he says to Lummis, he says, they're paying me to lie about the West. I'm not going to do it anymore. Because he's doing all these illustrations, right, of cowboys fighting and gunfights and, Indians and all that stuff. And it's not real. He knows it. He's been out to the desert many, many times. He knows what the West is. He knows what the true West is. So he leaves, goes back to San Francisco, where he's going to want to become a fine artist. And as luck would have it, he meets Anita Baldwin. Now, Dixon had drawn Lucky Baldwin in 1906. Lucky Baldwin was one of the richest men in the world. He was the financier for the Comstock Lode. His daughter, Anita Baldwin, was also very wealthy. And so she becomes this mentor, patron for Dixon. And it's very important that this happens, because what happens is now he's thinking of himself as an illustrator, but all of a sudden he gets to do her house. He gets to do the Baldwin murals in her house. They're both Native American subject matter as well as the Jinx room, and he does all the decoration of the pool table and the wallpaper, which I saw, and we have the pool table, all the chairs and things in the museum with Dixon's original drawings as far as his imagery of Athabascan on that. So he does it all. Now, she says, originally, I'll pay you $8,000. She's so pleased with it, she pays him $10,000. This is 1912. That's an amazing amount of money for somebody like that. And Dixon, at that moment, he says, I'm a fine artist. I'm a painter. And from that point on, he kind of thinks of himself in that term. And you have to realize, these murals get written up in the LA Times and the San Francisco Examiner, and they're glowing reviews. But he can't just get rid of illustration that fast. It just doesn't happen that way. And even Dennis is probably going to tell you that's just maybe not how it goes. In fact, Dixon will do illustrations all the way until 1943 for books. Parkman book, Oregon Trail he did. But he does see that I need to be a fine artist. I can do it. There's people that want my work. So what happens is, after he does this, he gets a job in 1916, and it's going to last to 1921 with Foster and Kleiser. Now, they're the biggest advertising firm in San Francisco. It's very big. And you'll see two pieces that are in the museum that are on exhibit here for Malto chocolates and for the Apache Trails. Those were done in that time frame, 1916 to 1921. And it's very interesting, I'm sure Dennis will be able to relate to this, is that Dixon says, I learned so much about color and composition working for that company, and I would not have been the artist I am today if I didn't do that. So it really made the basis of how he would see the world and how he would paint. Now, Dixon's 46 at this point, and that's the point where, after he gives that up, he really does the fine art. And that's going to be, you know, from 46, he's 46 years old, he's going to do it until he's 72 years old. So that's 1916 to 1921. Jumping forward to 1939, Dixon's now getting older, he's in San Francisco, and he realizes he can't stay there. It's too wet for him, he has emphysema. So he's going to leave his 728 Montgomery Street studio, which, by the way, if you go again in our museum, you'll see I remade that studio. So in that museum, you'll see his easel, his gun, his cane, his cheese blanket. You'll see all the remnants and things that were in his studio, and it has that sensibility of 1915. Well, Dixon's, again, he's there in that studio from 1912 to basically 40. So he has a big studio sale. So October 12th, 13th, 14th, from 3 o'clock to 9 p.m., you could go to his studio and buy drawings. You could buy different kinds of illustrations, lesser paintings. He has all this going on at that very time frame for a studio sale. It's so successful that Dixon's going to stay open doing this for an additional 3 weeks, which brings us to today, when we have Dennis Ziemienski. So, Mr. Ziemienski, who graduates from his college in 1972, he ends up in New York City in 1980. And a lot of these pieces you'll see in here are dated 80, 81. So what's happening in 1980 to 1982? A Great Recession. It's the biggest recession since the Depression, which is back to Dixon. And he's 33 years old, the same age as Maynard Dixon when he goes to New York City. I'm sure he has the same vigor and the same sensibility of the world is on fire for me. And he gets all these great, commissions and things. At Dixon's studio sale in 39, I got some of the Boulder Dam illustrations that he did in 1934. And I also have the Golden Gate Bridge illustrations that he did. Irving Morrow, who was the architect for that. Dixon got hired. He does all the drawings for these. And he ends up, Dixon, being involved in getting the color to red. So Ziemienski comes, right, and he's in New York City, and he's going to do the Academy Awards and a Super Bowl and the Olympics. And if you look around, this and this and this and this, book covers and all these things. So when we decided to do this show, Dennis and I, we talked about doing this retrospective, and I said to Dennis, if we're going to do a retrospective, it can't just be the fine art, because that's only a % of what you do. Like Dixon, who changes his life in 46 and goes back and becomes a fine art painter, he does the same thing, and he's going to do it as the computer age comes in, right? So he goes, okay, 1996, 97, computers have changed. I really don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going to take the words out. You're alive, and you can speak to that effect. But when you think about the irony of Dixon in 1939 having a studio sale to get rid of everything, and then you think of Dennis Ziemienski basically doing the same in a way, because I'm asking him, do you have all these, images? And he says, yeah, they're in my attic, they're in, boxes, they're underneath there. And he said, those all have value. I know you may not see it that way because most illustrators don't. They see it as, something that they did their job and that was it, or it went away. But we're having our studio sale in a way, and it's going to last about the same time, about a month. So it's a rare opportunity, really rare opportunity. You don't get these very often, that you have a major important artist who's having a 50-year retrospective, and you have all his illustrations that he saved for his life available for people to view, see, and buy. And now let's hear the rest of the story from Dennis Ziemienski.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
How can you follow?
Okay, good, thanks. I may need that.
He's alive and can tell the real story.
Yeah, I think I can. I think I'm alive. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming. I'm so thankful that all of you are here. There's a number of you that I'm really thankful for, because I'll get to that just a little bit later. But illustration for me, I'll get back to the beginning of this, and that we'll just go here. This is just something that I did. Here's a date of 1956. So I'm 9 years old. And I went to KPIX television. That was the CBS affiliate in San Francisco. And there was a children's program where they would invite people or kids to do a draw. And I won the Halloween contest with that. So. Before that, I had drawn, I loved watching cartoons. And so, Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Bugs Bunny and all those characters, I would draw them over and over again. So when I got to kindergarten and first grade, both those teachers we'd have those show and tell, everybody would go to the class and, okay, Judy, come on up and, what did you do this summer? Or do a show and tell. For me, it was, Dennis, you do a show and tell, but you have to draw on the blackboard. And I would draw characters. I would entertain kids for a while, drawing pictures. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. Because I've become kind of, in my own little first or second grade environment, a little famous for that. And I thought, wow, that might get me somewhere. That's little kids kind of go, oh, I'm really, really cool with that. And so I carried that into, we're going to stay on that for a while because I'm going to move into why I did some cartooning. You may see some here. I don't know, maybe not. But I went to San Jose State first and did some undergraduate work. And it was during the Vietnam era, and so the draft board was after me, and I figured, well, let's do something about that. My dad worked at Mare Island, and he said, you ought to get into the Navy Reserve. That way you can just go on the weekends, and then you have, it's a 6-year deal, but you only have 2 years. You don't have to go for 4 years. And so at San Jose State, I joined the reserves. I was in submarine duty. So I had 2 years, I call it 2 semesters at sea. And then I got back and realized I can't just mess around at San Jose State and go back to that. I really have to concentrate on what I love doing. And so at school, at the California College of Arts and Crafts, as they called it back when I was there, now it's called the California College of the Arts. And I would have instructors. I was getting my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in painting, in drawing, and those kind of visual arts. And I constantly had teachers. There were 2 teachers there that would have a class like this, and they'd say, "How many want to be fine artists?" And a lot of them would raise their hands. And I didn't raise my hand. I wasn't sure what I was going to be, a fine artist. That'd be great. And he'd say, "A lot of you aren't going to make it. If you want to make it, if you all have rich grandmothers, yes, you'll make it. But if you really want to make it in the art world, you will be able to do that through the back door, through illustration. And if you are a imagist, as I was, a person who draws things that you can see what they are, rather than just abstraction, you're going to do well in illustration." So I graduated with a BFA and Bachelor of Fine Arts, and immediately was looking for work rather than freelancing. And so I did get a job where I was hired to do illustration, and I have none of those pictures here. They're already sold. There was a lot of work. There's maybe 2 or 3 times as much work that I didn't get to present here because it's all gone or somebody else has it. Do you still have that? Can you sell it to me? Of course, here you go. And but there's still quite a body of work. I was really thrilled the other day coming in. So I did get an assignment in Palo Alto, not too far from San Francisco, and I got to work there for about a year until somebody said, "Dennis, why are you working there when you'd be great freelancing?" And I wasn't sure because the assignments are sometimes you have a few, and then sometimes for a couple of months you don't have any at all. You have to keep submitting your portfolio, keep doing this kind of thing. And so I started getting assignments from San Francisco, mostly the San Francisco Bay Area. And they knew that I did some cartooning at my design firm that I was with. And so one of the first assignments I did was a zoo poster. And there's something else I like doing is anthropomorphizing. Did I say that right? Do we have college people here? Turning objects and animals and fruits and vegetables into human and using human activities with it. I just love being able to do that. It stems from my watching Bugs Bunny and all those other characters, And so this right here, this won several awards, in fact, in Europe too, which was just great. And it got me going. And then the zoo decided to hire me for more stuff, and it was their historic carousel. And so the historic carousel, I thought, well, they wanted 2 posters. And I thought, wow, what we can do with that is make it look like a carousel if you put them all together. And they did that in their around the carousel to make it look like, it's going up and down like that. And then I also submitted work to a bunch of places. This is a little bit later, but anthropomorphizing the California grizzly here in the Sonoma Valley Film Festival. That's much later, but this was for San Francisco KQED public broadcasting about Dr. Harriet, All Creatures Great and Small. Is that what it is? Yeah. And these are for when I got to New York. I was also doing, some of the more realistic stuff too. But when I got to New York, Children's Television Workshop loved the way I anthropomorphized objects like a tea kettle or a refrigerator or a horse. And this was called Any Questions in one of their magazines, and I loved doing it because it was kids asking questions. Why do horses sleep standing up? Or how do refrigerators get cold? And, where does all the heat come from? Or do fishes sleep at all? And they answer the questions. I put the illustrations on them. And now we're going to switch over to why I love doing, even though I love doing cartooning, I also, what you're seeing here is mostly imagery. And when I was going to school, I saw these illustrators, and they were my heroes, and I tried to emulate them. And that's not a bad thing when you're a student. Even after you're a student, you kind of you look at something, and you kind of go, oh, something like that, the composition really works. And this is what I do. If you look at my work, you take a look back there at the El Ranchero, it's basically the same thing, Here, what he does, what J.C. Leindecker, he was the arrow collar man. Can you move it slightly this way? Well, doesn't matter. This thing here. Yeah, because there it is. We're good. He tends to limit his information and have a central subject. The sun is subordinate, and the little wagon train and mountains down here is subordinate. And I thought, when I was learning illustration, that's what the teachers would say. You're driving on a freeway and going 60. You're not going to have to be able to see all the stuff that's going on in that billboard. You want to be able to see that's, something that's mostly like this or that, where it catches your eye, entices you to go there or do that. So J.C. Leindecker was one of the top ones. And then there was this, and he was during the 20s, 30s. And then Ludwig Hohlwein, about the same time in Germany, did the same thing with his compositions. Main figures, subordinate, that kind of thing. The villages, I figure, the main subject there. But Ludwig Hohlwein and his use of flat color, that was something that interested me too. And then from England, Tom Purvis, and he did it even more. And by golly, he used my composition, what I did for the San Francisco Zoo right here. He took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 posters, and they're individual posters, but if you put them all together, you get to see the whole scene. I thought, I want to do more of that. I might have to do that with my paintings. That means you'll have to buy them all, either that or whatever. And then, of course, Maxfield Parrish, his color, and his compositions too. There's a lot going on in there, but it's mainly these characters in the mountains are in the background. And then, of course, N.C. Wyeth. N.C. Wyeth is just lovely compositions. Wonderful. You can see main thing going on. Anything else is subordinate. Okay, now we're coming back to me. Now this is more San Francisco, where I did this San Francisco poster here for a publishing company, and then the Monterey Bay Aquarium, Breakaway Cafe, and the yeah.
No longer here.
Yeah. She knows. Yeah. It was a fantastic place. This kind of, they wanted a lot of stuff going on in this composition. It kind of destroyed my theory of having something main in there. And this comes close, but lots of stuff going on in there. And Olmsted Maupin got me to do the covers for his book. Tales of the City, and I did 3, but I only have 2 here, and Baby Cakes, which is right, you can see it back here, the original and the printed version of that. So, San Francisco, there's a lot to see there. Also, during that period in California, I loved road trips, and so I'd go and just take tons of pictures of stuff that was going on that I kind of liked, especially the giant orange stand. That would be along Highway 99 between Sacramento and Los Angeles. You'd go down that highway, and there'd be these refreshment stands that were in the shape of oranges. And they sold orange juice and hamburgers and French fries and stuff. And it was they were mainly built for kids who were in the car. They would just, shake their parents like, "Come on, we got to stop at one of them. We never. My mom and dad never stopped. I got to do that when I was maybe about 20. Finally, I got to go in there, and it was good. It was okay. So I really wanted to do it, staying at motels and stuff like that. So all these around here were done for Paper Moon Graphics in Los Angeles, and this was done for a store in San Francisco, where I kind of flipped it over here and did some other stuff because I kind of liked the way that looked. Anyway, you can see in some of this composition here the flat color. And I'm also starting to do a little bit of airbrush as well. This was Paper Moon Graphics as well. They asked me to do a Valentine, and I thought, let's put some artwork together again. And this card actually kisses. It folds right here. You write something on the center, and it kisses. Yeah, it's fun. And then I decided to go to New York. This was 1980, and I realized if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And that was kind of like, I always kept looking at that. I had so many colleagues who said, "Oh, my artwork's not good enough." It's like, oh, I wanted to hit them, Like, the only way you're going to really improve is to love what you do. And so I did Gilda. How many people remember Saturday Night Live and Gilda Radner? I did that in 1980. And then this was the first assignment I got from Redbook. It was a girl who was pouting on the couch in New York City. And then I started getting assignments like these, New York magazine covers and everything else. So we have a bunch of those, I think, coming up. But this is my introduction. When I went there, I wanted to make sure, so I showed the work and the people. It was odd because the art directors I would show this work to, some of them were slides and they could look at the slides, and some were hardly enthusiastic at all. They would look at the work and kind of, "Okay, fine, thank you, bye." And then the ones, and you would get an assignment the next day with those people. The ones that would just pour over your work. "Oh man, look at that!" Oh. You'd never hear from them again. I never figured that one out. Anyway, I eventually, within a month, I got an agent. I had one in San Francisco too, Jim Lilly, and then I had Les Mintz in New York. And they would get me assignments like Elmore Leonard's book covers. All those right there. Elmore Leonard, and he didn't ask me. I guess there was, the company who was doing this. I guess it was Warner. Was it Warner? Warner Books. Warner Books. Yeah. They just assigned me these things right here. This is my brother-in-law right here. And then this segment here of book covers. This is the first one I did, and they liked the way I had this perspective of looking down into the room. I'd had to read, you have to read these books, and you want to be able to pick out something that's going to, especially a book cover with an illustration on it. Now there's a lot of book covers that just have type, which is okay, but you want to be able to pick up a book or a wine bottle or any of these things and kind of go, "Oh, look at that. Oh, I wonder what's in there." And so each one of these is a picture of maybe just one sentence in one paragraph in one chapter in the middle of the book somewhere. And so, but it does kind of give you a feeling of what you might expect. So these were good sellers here. Elizabeth Daily wrote books way back when, but they republished them, and so there they are, right there. James Lee Burke, of course, using a lot of airbrush now in here. And then here's some stuff for New York Times. I did quite a number of these for their Sophisticated Traveler, and this was the first one here. This one kind of got me the idea of maybe I should do Western stuff. Go back to San Francisco. I don't know, 82 maybe, something like that. 83, 84. Okay. And then I started getting assignments outside of New York, more and more of that. This is United Airlines. And then this is the Washington Post. And this was this one right here. I don't know if everyone can see the ship right there. That was the Chicago Tribune. National Lampoon, you know. And some of this is acrylic as well. I didn't mention that. Acrylic, you know, some of my colleagues used oil, and I had a lot of friends in New York and San Francisco, and they'd use oil, and they'd say, "Oh, I have to, you know, there's no way I can get that to you." Asking, you know, telling the art director, for me, I was good to go. I didn't need to use oil. I could use acrylic the very same way and apply thick paint and get out my hairdryer and dry it, and they could get it the next day. Because they always need it last Thursday. You know, oh, the publishing date. It's going to be a big red dot that says Ziemienski. You know. So, at any rate, this has more thick paint. You can see a little bit of airbrush going on in there. But some of it's just flat color. This is thick paint in here. Okay. Here we go. And so this is National Geographic, all about Sunset Boulevard. It was a big article about Sunset Boulevard. So they did a map, and they wanted me to put all the things on it because New York art directors were saying, "Where are you from?" I said, "Well, I'm from California." "That's great because I like California light. I like the way you produce, you know, your stuff is nice and crisp. It doesn't have that kind of sultry, kind of sticky feel to it." So LA, I got this in New York, but it was for the Los Angeles Olympics in 1984. That was the opening page. There was a lot of type that went here. And this was for, oh, help me here. Rolling Stone. Thanks. Ann, thank you. And this is for the Atlantic. It was all about fast food restaurants and how they started. And there was a number, there was about 4 or 5 of these. This is the only one I had left, and now we don't have it anymore. I think it's sold. So that's good. That's this one over here. Yeah. And so, yeah, you know, this is Sports Illustrated.
And what years are these approximately?
80s. You know, this is 84.
Obviously the Olympics, yeah.
84, yeah, in the 80s when I was in New York.
Thank you.
And then album cover, 2 very famous composers and musicians here.
Wow.
Time Life, and this, I forget, I think this could be Time Life as well. And some more New York stuff, events, you know, that I went through this whole thing thinking, how can I put this slideshow together? Well, there's book covers, and then there's editorial stuff, and there's newspapers. Well, now we're into events here. And this was in TV Guide. And, of course, this is Mercedes-Benz. It was in the New York Times and a bunch of other places. Did I say that loud enough? Maybe. And more New York stuff. Cuba Libre is... forget the name of the rum that went to, but Bacardi maybe? I'm not sure. Norwegian Caribbean Lines, and again, New York Magazine. Travel. It's all about traveling here. Am I going a little too fast?
No, it's good.
No? Okay. And then this is Chevy's. I don't know if you recall that restaurant. There were a lot in California, but seafood here. And these are more painterly. This is more toward the early 90s that I'm doing these. I think I got these from Jim Lilly, my agent in San Francisco. And so I'm painting a little bit more. And people were saying, oh, you know, Dennis, your work looks a lot like orange crate labels. And if you get my book, you'll go through the chapter that says way out west. So there's the Southwest and the Mountain West and a whole bunch of other chapters in there. WOW, as I call it, Way Out West, is all about California. And there's a double page spread about this show that I did in Pasadena that imitated orange crate and citrus crate labels. Finally, this was 2011 that I did this, because people were saying, oh, you know, you ought to come up with your own. Pumbaa, the one behind you up there on the wall, that was one of those labels right there. So there we go. Yeah. So it's introducing type. I was kind of timid about introducing any kind of type or any kind of format in my fine art when I first started. But then I thought, there's not a lot of that going on. So this has kind of originated that in a way. Oh yeah, LA here, this is San Francisco, and then of course I did Patricia Hearst's book. It's fun. I was in New York when I did this. It was in San Francisco. I got these models to pose, and I posed for him. I tried to look, you know, I was only in my 30s, but I tried to look real goofy, you know. Oh, did that work? Oh, we're there. Now we came back to California. Okay, I came back in '86. My wife had breast cancer and she passed away. So we came back to her family in Southern California. And so I started working out of LA. And when she did finally pass, I moved back up to the Bay Area, and I bought some property in Sonoma. And there were a number of people who heard about my artwork, and they said, can you do a couple of event posters for us? And one was the Bear Flag Sesquicentennial, the 150th anniversary of California becoming a republic. Salute to the Arts is another one.
Pat Summers sends her best. I spoke to her yesterday.
Oh yeah, Pat Summers. Oh, okay. Oh, hi. And then there's the Sebastiani Theater, which that time was 60, and Napa Valley as well. So, and then I, at the same time, was getting. I knew a lot of art directors, and this one didn't come through an agent. This one came from a long-standing art director that I knew that worked for several different stores and advertising agencies and everything. And finally, he got to do the NFL, and he was selecting artists for this. And I got to do Super Bowl number 29 here, which was in Miami, and the 49ers won. How about that? Yeah. There's spookiness that goes on about illustration and art. And this one right here, because it, you know, the 49ers had won, it was actually written up in the San Francisco Chronicle through Herb Caen, who was a celebrity writer there. And he said, perhaps it was because Dennis did that poster that helped us win. And then moving on from this, of course, that was, when was that? 95, thank you. And of course, being in wine country, you can't avoid people asking you to do wine labels. And I got, John Lasseter, who was head of Pixar at one time, and now he's doing other things, owns this.
Toy Story.
Yeah, all those.
They're older, they might not.
Toy Story, yeah. At any rate, he asked me to do his wine labels. And there was one where I had to, I was getting models for some of these things. You know, there's characters in here that are doing things. I did my Diving Girl. By this time, it was like 2005 or 6 or something like that. This was one was a little bit later, of course. And you can see, I basically did this quick sketch and I said, I have this model. It's going to be a perfect sommelier, you know, that can do this thing, because they said they wanted that. And they said, oh, we'll have to, the Screen Actors Guild, and we'll have to talk to our lawyers. I said, oh, okay, never mind. I have a tuxedo. I'll do it. And I did the label. I'm on the label. So if you get voila, that's the name of the wine. I forget the what type of wine it is. It's good. It's white.
What year's the wine?
2011, right there. So, okay. And then this one here.
It's got a backstory.
It does. This is obviously on my birthday, which is, yeah. And you have to come up with the idea. I was asked to do this, and I had been asked several times to do the NFL, you know, the Super Bowl poster, where you come up with an idea and you may be rejected. Or Time Magazine. They ask about 4 or 5 artists to come up with an idea. And it's a real gamble. You know, you might get one like I did, you might not. And this one right here, I said, you know, I don't do that anymore. It's 2006 already. I had Mark Sublette. I didn't need anything else. You know? And I said, I'm not sure. And both my daughter and wife, who are really into horses, and Sophia, my daughter, was into Pony Club. They said, Dad, if you don't, you know, I says, well, I'll ask him, but I'm not going to. I said, look, if I'm in competition with anybody, I don't want to do it. And they said, no. You know, we know you're at work. We'd like to see you come up with an idea. I went, oh, well, okay, girls, we got this, you know. And so I looked at all the other posters. Some of my colleagues had done it. Tony Bennett did a couple of them even. And they all had lots of horses on them, lots of horses. And I thought, oh, I'm going back to my plan of having a dominant feature with subordinate stuff going on, where, boom, it hits you right away. It's not like, oh, this scramble, you know, what's that? Oh, ooh. No, you got Churchill Downs, you know, you got enough going on. The clouds, I love doing the clouds. The thing of it was, I had to come up with a sketch, and this is in November. This is, you know, 6 months before the running of the roses, you know. And so what I did, Anne was on the phone to her mother in Washington, D.C., and her mother was wonderful and was really peculiar in that she would ask lots of questions and everything. So I was just, you know, I shouldn't be asking this, but, you know, and ask her a number between 1 and 20. And she said 8 right away. I said, are you sure? You know, 8. So I put 8 down here. I sent this off to Churchill Downs, and they said, oh, I don't know, you know, everybody's going to be betting on number 8 and whatnot.
We wished.
Yeah.
We wished.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Don't go any further, okay?
Not saying we're in.
All right, good. So we get a free trip out there. We get to stay with the people with Churchill Downs and everything. Sophia's there. She even gets to present a trophy because I didn't want to. This was the day before, I guess. But, you know, she's much taller than the jockey, and, you know, I thought that was charming. But the day of this, we decided to call out in front because there's nobody else around. So the day of the race, this running right here, it starts out, and number 8 is out in front. and wins by 7, whatever you call those horses, lengths, 7 lengths. And the director in the back drops her mint julep, and I hear it crash, and she's going, "This has never happened. This has never happened." And I said, "Oh, wow, yeah, I guess." And I put $20, so we got $200 for that. That was really pretty good. But the following day, I had to go to the airport, and I was there under the auspices of Churchill Downs, and we were selling posters, and I was signing them and whatnot, and somebody came up to me and said, "Did you realize that number 8 won?" I said, "Yeah, of course." But number 13 came in second, and number 2 came in third. You had the trifecta. I said, "Well, I didn't have it. You guys had
You
it."
got another $200.
Yeah, maybe more.
One thing, because I know Erica, this was your horse.
Heather's.
This was,
No,
her
I
daughter's
paid
horse.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't my
well,
horse.
This was
Yeah.
their horse, and it was a retired thoroughbred. And Dennis got
Oh,
on the
thank
ground with one of his
Heather for it.
cameras and did the sports feature, and this horse would just, and her daughter would just come riding
She
full
was all of
speed,
15 or
and he was
16.
just get all these pictures. So that's a real,
Yeah, but
horse that we know.
Do we remember who number 8 horse was in
Yeah,
the tragedy?
Yes, Barbaro. He was bound to win all of them. What do we call that?
The trifecta, the
Yeah,
Triple Crown.
Triple Crown. There we go. But at the next race, he fell and broke his leg. So they tried to repair him, and it didn't work out. But yeah, Barbaro. That was Barbaro, out in front. Let me see something here. Oh, yeah, there we go. This is Sophia. This shows, I decided this is the last slide, so we won't bother you too much more. But this kind of shows that transition, how I can also design artwork to fit into a certain format. And it's fine artwork. It's not just this goofy kind of thing that you're trying to work with. I really tried to make this work for the Jackson Fall Arts Festival here. And this is 2018. Little comment here. People kind of griped at me for having the horse's mouth in for that further. They usually are on the very surface when they drink. And I said, I know that, but they're refreshing themselves. A horse will actually put their head underwater and throw it over themselves. And that's what this horse is refreshing. And they just come off a big ride here. A horse will put their muzzle or their face in the water. So, and I had pictures, so I always do that. And that's another thing an illustrator must do, is to do their research. You have to make sure that the palm tree that you're putting in the picture also exists in that scene, in that background, or whatnot. There was a book cover one of my colleagues did about Long Island, and it had eucalyptus trees in it. Now, when it freezes in California, eucalyptus trees go under. It's not good. So it was like,
Tell the folks who Sophia is.
Sophia, my daughter. Yeah. Did I not say that? Yeah, and she's going to be here tomorrow, so come by and meet. Well, you'll meet my muse over here, and she's in a lot of my pictures. Not here, but in the upstairs, downstairs rather. This is considered upstairs. Am I right?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I call it the downstairs.
Downstairs. Okay, so upstairs there's some Sophia Ann's in there too, and in the book. So I thank them for that. And then for the book, I just wanted to mention, it's not just Mark and Kathleen and Charles and Jerry here and all the people, and Gabe for hanging all this stuff, thanking them for doing such an eye-popping thing. But we have a book here that I initially put together, and I was really worried how that was going to work out. And this evening we have two wonderful guests here, Robin and Adolfo Castillo from Western Art Collector, and actually international artist collectors thing there. And let me just bring this out. And got on the cover of this month's Western Art Collector. So have a look at that. There's some in the gallery, I think. Take a look. Okay,
By the way,
I think that's
great
it.
article on you too.
Yes, great article. Michael Clausen, the editor-in-chief at Western Art Collector, American Art Collector, and International Art Collector. And I'm probably goofing things up now, but anyway, thank you guys so much for that. And Michael, we'll see Michael tomorrow, I hear. So I think that's it. Thank you.